Hello folks, welcome to another edition of the Dr. Mark Foster Show. Today I will talk once again about the subject of angelic interventions, or as they are commonly known, alien abductions or contact experiences. Basically, my point today will be to focus on the fact that allegedly many contactees have received dire warnings of possible Earth changes or some types of nuclear disasters in the future. Some experiencers have referred to the fact that they were shown a screen where they were shown this type of devastation taking place. I have never had that, at least not to my recollection. On the other hand, since many of these experiences apparently take place in the dream state, and I do not generally recall my dreams, that might be why I don't remember. Again, since I don't remember, I can't say. But I will talk about them in general, and then I will conclude with a discussion of my own personal experiences, my own personal intuitions or dreams of coming Earth changes. First, in a very general sense, Jim Sparks, in an interview that he gave for Project Camelot in June of 2007, said, primarily in the mass abductions that I've seen, they primarily involve what are commonly referred to as greys, which is the name which is commonly given to an alleged species of transterrestrial or extraterrestrial beings. They're getting into environmental lessons. That's over a 19-year period. I would suspect very strongly that since the emphasis on almost every ET, non-human intelligent race and species is on our environment, I suspect something bad's going to happen there. However, the push from the future to now is to have all 6 billion of us, at that point close to 8 billion of us, survive and evolve into the future and into the galactic neighborhood. A handful relative to the population on the planet now survive all the upcoming environmental garbage. Only about a handful, relatively speaking, and then past that, we evolve and repopulate. So that is a pretty dire prediction. Here is another one. This one is from John E. Mack, from his book, Abduction, Human Encounters with Aliens. Scenes of the Earth devastated by a nuclear holocaust. Vast panoramas of lifeless, polluted landscapes and waters, and apocalyptic images of giant earthquakes, firestorms, floods, and even fractures of the planet itself are shown by the aliens. These are powerfully disturbing to the abductees, who tend to experience them as literally predictive of the future of the planet. Some abductees are given assignments in this future holocaust, as it is displayed, such as to feed the survivors, or are told, as in the prophetic books of the Bible, that some will perish and others will be taken to another place to participate in the evolution of life in the universe. And then finally, in terms of quotations from others, this is by Whitley Strieber, which is quoted from Alien Encounters. Under hypnosis, I saw one of these alien figures in my bedroom. It touched my head with a wand that had an electric fizzle to it, and it flashed terrifying visions. There was an apocalyptic vision, the end of the world, and of everything being destroyed, either in a nuclear war or a natural catastrophe of some kind. It looked like a war. I remember the sense of despair, helplessness that it brought me. I have remembered more and more not only the vision of the apocalypse, but other warnings, and consistent warnings, not only to me, but across the whole community of people who have had this experience. A lot of them get the same warnings, that we're in trouble, that our environment is in trouble. So I'm not alone in that, and that has become really a central feature of my current life. I think it happens to far more people than remember it at all. I see it as a part of the human experience that we cannot acknowledge. And I would agree with Whitley very much on that point. In my view, the so-called alien abduction phenomena are extraordinarily common. I would go beyond that. I would say that they are essentially universal. All of us, to one extent or another, have contact with angels. For some people, those contacts may involve being shown these kinds of devastating scenes, and a request to have a mission or inform other people about the possibility of some type of collapse. For other people, there may instead be an implant given to a person. The implant perhaps put there as a type of genetic improvement, something that would biologically alter that individual in some way that is spiritually beneficial, not only to that person, but to humanity as a whole. To me, on the other hand, what I was missing was empathy. And what my experiences have given me, above anything else, was a sense of empathy. Although under a state of hypnosis, as I've mentioned before, I was able to recall some type of non-terrestrial looking being. That was not a central feature to the experience that I remember. Instead, my experiences have centered around Hadrat Sultan Bahu, my guardian angel, and the other members of souls that I refer to as my spiritual family, most of whom I've known, who are now deceased, including my own parents, my spiritual mother, certain friends, and various other people that I have not known, but still have some type of connection with me. So my experiences have been a bit different, and yet I think ultimately they are the same. They have given me what I have needed, and I have been transformed by them. So I am extraordinarily grateful. I did not need the kind of exercises that some people are given. Some people on spacecraft are taught to remember certain things. have to go through an entire routine or regimen where they learn something over and over again. Presumably that is what they need. That is something that will help them adapt to coming changes in this world. Perhaps I didn't need that, or at least I don't remember. In any event, what I have received I am extraordinarily grateful for. What I will do now is I will share my own personal experiences of earth changes. First I will read one dream that I had, and then a second. As with many experiencers, I have been given a warning concerning catastrophic earth changes. Although I hardly ever remember my dreams, in the early morning hours of September 5th, 2012, I saw, while in the visionary sleeping state, a rapid series of meteors, asteroids, or comets descending all around me. As I stood in a parking lot, a few yards or meters from an automobile, I observed these celestial entities as rocky, fiery meteorites or other objects on the ground. My emotional state in the dream, perhaps as a memorable lesson for the future, was, as I recall, bewilderment, not fear. So, that was the first dream. The second one occurred this morning, which is, I suppose, why the subject occurred to me. This is the account. At approximately 7 a.m. on April 14th, 2013, I awoke suddenly, following another possibly precognitive dream. As explained in 2 intelligence briefings, with the second spokesperson confirming the first, the U.S. was making emergency preparations for a limited nuclear attack. Unfortunately, the expectation that the source of these operations was North Korea could be a diversion or misdirection. Instead, that country's military and political ally, Iran, acting through domestic terrorist cells, might, successfully or not, be the actual protagonist. Although I saw in the vision a brown spherical bomb, the term suitcase nuke occurred to me. So those were the 2 dreams, the first from last year and the second from this morning. Here is what Abdu'l-Baha said about dreams from the book Some Answered Questions. How often it happens that it sees in the world of sleep, and its signification becomes apparent 2 years afterward in corresponding events. In the same way, how many times it happens that a question which one cannot solve in the world of wakefulness is solved in the world of dreams. In wakefulness, the eye sees only for a short distance, but in dreams, he who is in the east sees the west. Awake, he sees the present. In sleep, he sees the future. In wakefulness, by means of rapid transit, at the most he can travel only 20 farsakhs an hour, which is approximately 80 miles or 129 kilometers. In sleep, in the twinkling of an eye, he traverses east and west. So that was one of the experiences that I had, along with an interpretation, a more generalized interpretation of dreams that occurred to me. In addition to that, I have had a rather unusual experience a few weeks ago, which involved a vision of flashing lights, or lightning bolts, or perhaps light beings. This is a relatively new experience for me, and actually I do interpret them as light beings. As a result of these experiences, seeing these visions, these light visions, I was almost instantly transformed, and as a result of that, I developed new insights. As I have developed and drawn closer to my guardian angel, I have started talking to him. Earlier this month, on April 2nd of 2013, I was laying on my back in a state of communion. At the time, I saw, with my eyes wide open, what I feel was another confirmatory flash of white light from my guardian angel, or perhaps another member of my spiritual family. I saw a light being. I was reflecting on the idea that in the wake of planetary catastrophes, or even while they occur, certain nations, concerned for their survival, might attempt to plunder the spoils of a chaotic global environment. Even now, various military agencies and governments, aware of imminent Earth changes, might be pre-positioning their assets, especially near the two Koreas and in the Middle East. Cyber warfare, or cyber terrorism, could also be a factor in the equation. Under those kinds of circumstances, asymmetrical warfare becomes a possibility. The term asymmetrical warfare refers to at least two different categories of military action. First, what is generally referred to as guerrilla warfare, which is where you have people who are lightly armed, but they are very devoted and dedicated to a cause. They know the land, they know the territory, whereas you might have a better equipped army unit that is in the area, but is not as comfortable with the area, and consequently the guerrilla fighters might end up winning. So guerrilla warfare can often be effective. That is an example of asymmetrical, or in other words, unbalanced warfare. Similarly, terrorism. Terrorism is also asymmetrical warfare. A relatively weak country, or a relatively powerless organization, might exploit some type of vulnerability that exists in a nation state. We have been seeing that recently with all of the cyber terrorism and the hacking which has been going on. Much of it has been done by relatively weak nations, or by, in some cases, by lone wolves, by single individuals acting alone. So we live in a very dangerous world. And nobody needs to really say that. It's obvious from the news, from simply looking around, the level of anxiety which I see, including among my students, some of whom have bought into these conspiracy theories. People tend to buy into conspiracy theories when things begin not to make any sense, and then they look for alternative explanations, however odd. So, what will happen eventually, I don't know. Will there be, as some people have predicted, a disastrous global coastal event? Again, no one knows but God. But regardless of what happens, whether it's ecological devastation or some type of extreme warfare, or perhaps more likely a combination of both, we will have to see what happens in the future. For now, this is Dr. Mark Foster. Have a good one.